All right. Well, welcome everybody to our Connected Educator Appreciation Day, Connected Educator Monthly Meetup for April. My name is Tim McDonald, and I am one of the organizers along with Michael Sinclair and Vladka Bukovic. And we are so glad to have everybody together on this topic. It's something that's happening globally, which doesn't happen too often, that we can all kind of share our experiences with. And so we're just very excited to kind of bring all this together, people. And why I'm so interested in it is I've been writing a book about fear and how we can actually utilize fear to our advantage. And one of the things that I've seen throughout this pandemic is just the fear of the unknown is one of the greatest things that's happening. And as I look with all the educators and the administrators that I've talked to and read about and even in corporate leadership, right? Everybody is saying, all these CEOs are getting up and saying they don't have the answers because they just don't know. And it's there for the first time we're seeing this, this openness, this sharing of saying that we are a little bit fearful about not knowing what's going to happen, but we can make it through together. And so that's why I thought this was a great topic, because so many schools are actually moving or have moved to remote teaching, and what better time to bring everybody in. So why don't I just go through and ask all of you to kind of introduce yourselves real briefly and just explain where you're from and what your role is there. So Maureen, do you want to start us off?
My name is Maureen Tyra, and I'm a middle school teacher in Richfield, Connecticut.
All right. And Alfred, you want to go?
Yeah, my name is Alfred Thompson. I teach computer science at a Catholic high school in Nashua, New Hampshire. And I've been doing that for about 15 years or so.
Well, glad to have you, and got to thank Angela Myers for connecting us on Facebook. So thank you for being here. And Angel, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Angell Troxler. I'm a second grade teacher in Charleston, South Carolina.
All right. And Leticia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leticia Barr. I teach middle school for Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland. I also have been blogging about technology, parenting, and education since 2008.
Fantastic. And Thomas, how about you?
Hi there, I'm Thomas Rogers. I'm a teacher and acting for curriculum coordinator, EdTech lead, and Microsoft in Education expert for the year 2019-2020. And I'm currently in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
All right. Well, it's kind of exciting to see like different roles, different places, kind of across North America here that we have represented. So it should be pretty interesting to get some different perspectives on everything. But I think one of the biggest things, and maybe we would just start with you, Thomas, on this, and feel free, everybody, you don't need to wait for me to call on you if you want to, jump in and respond to somebody else. But why don't we start with Thomas on this one? Can you just explain how the situation has changed since this shift to remote teaching has happened?
Sure, I'll do my best. It is certainly it's a work in progress. Like just as early as yesterday, we finally got some direction kind of corporately from our division on what exactly the future is going to look like, even in terms of assessment. And that's a whole other conversation I'll put off to the side for now. But how things have shifted for me specifically was subtle, but also significant. So as I mentioned, one of my principal roles in my school this year was to be the ed tech lead. So I'm coordinating with the key people in my division that provide essentially professional development. And then I was kind of seeping that down to the people in my building that needed it or wanted it, all that good stuff. But when this COVID-19 thing happens, that's not one person now, that's everyone. Everyone needs to learn how to use Google Meets. Everyone needs to know how to use Google Classroom. These things became from optional to requirement. This is how you will be doing your teaching. This is how you're gonna be doing your job. And as you can imagine, there are some that are just ready to go and they're like, okay, I got this. I've been using these tools already, or I've got a really high skill ceiling. This is no problem. And then you have the other group that's like, and that's not my screen freezing up, that is literally their face. And that's probably been my biggest shift, is moving into a direct role to support not only the staff, but also the students that we have working remotely. And that's been everything from making sure that they've got devices at home that work, linking them up with the district if they don't have reliable internet access. We've actually been very fortunate to partner with a telecom to make sure that these kids have Wi-Fi at home so that they can access the material. And yeah, it's been pretty intense. And we've also been working at the school level within the department that I'm a part of, which is English Language Arts, coordinating and collaborating on weekly tasks that we're sending out to the students. So in the spirit of equity, which is one of the big problems that we have, we're trying to give, as each one of our students in the same grade, the same assignment. So we've been getting together as a department like never before to collaboratively work on these tasks. And it's actually been a really good experience.
So my school actually started planning for moving online in February. We kind of saw this coming. So we actually had one day of professional development as a kind of, okay, this is what may be coming. You should be thinking about how you would take your class online and so on. And then we had another PD day when the decision actually came. And I think most people had actually been thinking about it. It feels strange in that the teaching changes most in that the location is different. I'm sitting in my dining room table teaching. We run live classes all week long. We don't do, send a packet home on Monday and collect it on Friday. I've been moving forward, but the big changes I've had to change sort of priorities. We're not meeting as often. So I'm meeting in an 8-day rotation. I'm meeting, I guess, 4 times instead of 7. So I've had to really look at what are the important concepts. In one respect, I'm lucky in that I normally finish with a semester project that I give them 2 weeks to work on. So we're not doing finals, which is a big change. So I can cover a little more material and get closer to what I actually would, which is kind of great. Although I can't see their faces as well as I can when I'm in the room. And those visual clues are critically important for, because kids don't always ask questions, but you can see on their faces that they need one. So a lot of kids don't have their video on, and whether they're there or not, well, I've kind of had to decide that that's their problem. And I hope they are, and they're just shy. I just don't feel like I can make them turn their videos on, because that seems a little bit too invasive of privacy to me.
It's interesting when you talk about that, Alfred, because I've been using video for 10 years, and I always say that form of connection we can have outside of meeting in person, right? And most of us can't meet in person now. So when I've managed teams that were remote, I've actually, I had a lot of people that didn't want to get on video, but I've actually worked with them over time to encourage them to be on video because of the personal connection that creates, and the sense of, I think, of attention. Like, we know that what we're doing when we can see each other, but when your screen's off, I can be like on the phone. I can be talking to somebody in the background. I can be off, doing something else and just have you on mute. So it's interesting that you bring that up and how you're handling that. So anybody else want to share?
Sure, I'll share.
I also agree with Alfred in that it's really hard to read your students when you're in this kind of format. That is missing one-to-one, reading their face, seeing the problem. And while in the classroom, so they may be afraid to ask a question, you can, like you said, you can see on their face they might need a little bit of personal intervention. And I think what many of our classes, what we do is we have live office hours, and people can come in and pop in and say, hey, Ms. Tyra, I need some help with this or that, or the other thing. But you can also hear the parents in the background saying, after this, after that. So you kind of miss seeing interactions saying, is it something that you don't understand or your parents don't understand? And a lot of times, no, my parents told me to ask you that because they weren't sure. So it's a very different dynamic. And I think that what Thomas was saying about going and getting used to how using this technology, it's the parents too, that this technology works. What are they doing? How does this app work? Because the students know, and the students have done this because we've done a lot of different platforms in my classroom, but the parents don't have a clue. And they're like, I don't think that's right. You should ask Ms. Tyra. And so it's kind of interesting in that regard.
It definitely is. I mean, I have to say I'm a mom of a middle schooler, an 8th grader, and also a high school student. And so I understand the parent side and I understand the teacher side really well. And I wrote a blog post a couple weeks ago about Dear Students, I Miss You. And it was all about missing that face-to-face interaction. You know, those little things that we don't even realize in the course of the day when we're with our kids, you know, the busyness of the transition in the hallway, the conversations that I have with kids as they're transitioning, seeing the contents of their messy lockers spill out on the floor and having a conversation with them, being able to gauge how they're feeling as they walk into the classroom or when I'm walking around giving one-on-one instruction, and how much more free they are to ask me a question when we're in the room physically together versus virtually. So I think that that's a big thing that, you know, students are definitely getting used to, parents too. As you said, Maureen, it's a big learning curve for parents. A lot of the parents that I know in my community, in Montgomery County schools, when schools were announced that we were going to be closing on the 13th, we got the announcement the day before. So we knew on Thursday that our last day of school would be Friday. And our district had been putting things in place for our students. We have 12,000 teachers. We have 140,000 students. We are the 14th largest school system in the country. So it's a huge effort for any of our systems to deal with this kind of thing. But there's also, as we know, a huge disparity in terms of technology and access to connectivity. So putting things in place for our students, the state of Maryland actually decided that we would be on a 2-week emergency leave. And what that did for our school system is that it gave plans, it gave time for plans to be cemented for professional development and the kinds of things that we as teachers needed moving forward. So after those 2 weeks, week 3 was a week spent on professional development. And our main goal as teachers was to check in with our students, see how kids were, and really tap into that social emotional, you know, that is so important, especially now. So that's what we were doing week 3. Week 4 was really the first week of instruction, and our goal was to finish out quarter 3, which should have ended, you know, weeks ago. But the first 2 weeks of instruction were all about finishing quarter 3. We weren't allowed to provide any new material. Any assessments we were given or any work we were given to students had to be on things we taught face-to-face. And so next week on Monday, we'll start quarter 4. And so there will be new learning. So we've allowed for some transition, not only for teachers in terms of getting up to speed with what they might need, although we know there's a huge variance on what we know and how confident we are in using these tools, but also from the parent learning side about these tools and how instruction is being provided. And also for the kids, you know, in terms of what online learning looks like they're used to using online learning platforms to manage assignments and things like that, but now that we're fully online, you know, it still is a big shift, even though they are familiar with some of these tools.
I just want to add, like, as an elementary teacher, it's almost amped up because I teach 8-year-olds, and it's been interesting navigating. We had a meeting on Friday that it might be a possibility that Monday we'd be out, but it wasn't for certain. they didn't call it until Sunday evening. So we went in, the kids did not, that Monday, had 3 hours to prepare whatever you wanted to send home with the kids. So it was very hard because you're like, you want to continue to teach, but you also realize the transition time. So a lot of us created paper packets, at least that option, and they checked out technology. So it gave us, you know, a week or two buffer, but it was a stressful Monday, knowing that you had 3 hours to put something together for who, at the time it was 3 weeks, we knew we'd be out. You know, so it was a tough transition for everybody.